If you choose the wrong J1 waiver program, it could cost you $250,000, and I'm not kidding. So it's very important you understand the whole process of J1 program waiver. My name is Julius Haryadi. I'm internal medicine physician working here in the US, and today I'm going to talk about J1 waiver. I think this is quite a warm topic these days because there has been an updated exchange skill list by countries that happened December 9, 2024, and a lot of people are asking, well, is it gone now? I don't have to go home for 2 years. That means that I don't have to do any waiver. Isn't that a great news? So we're going to take a look at the official website, whether that's actually true. Now, another thing that I want to talk about is the whole J1 waiver process. The thing is, when I look at in YouTube and search and Google, etc., I haven't found any video explaining about the J1 waiver process for physicians. I think the reason is because a lot of the YouTubers, basically if they're famous YouTubers that help you with the match, etc., most likely they're not on a visa anymore. Most likely they are a green card. And the reason is because you cannot become a YouTuber if you're on a visa. It's that simple. Or at least you cannot monetize from it, because that is basically against the immigration law. I started a YouTube channel in January, and that's because that is the time when I just received my green card. I received my green card in January 2024 and able to start the YouTube. Before that, my lawyer won't allow me to start any YouTube channel because YouTube is basically American company, like from Alphabet Inc. And then if I start the YouTube channel, it will be seen as I'm working while I'm staying in the US, whether that's a J1 or H1B, and that is basically against the law. I don't dare to engage in such activities because it will cost me my green card. So that's one reason why the famous YouTuber probably have a green card and allowed to work and receive money from the US company, so they don't go through any J1 process at all. While the other people who actually make YouTube probably not staying in the US, and that's pretty much allowed, right? Any country can become a YouTuber, really. But they're mostly a resident or they're on H1B. So there's no explanation on how the J1 waiver process is for physician. This could be the very first video. So I would like to explain to you everything today. The important ones, not really exactly super all details, because that's very complicated. There's so many documents that you need to fill, but at least you know the important stuff. I'm gonna explain to you that there are multiple J1 waiver programs, and there is one best J1 program that you need to aim for. It's better than the other programs, and why it's the best program. And if you don't choose that program, it might cost you $250,000 potentially. And it also almost cost me $280,000. And I'm going to show you that what actually happened. So you watch this video from the beginning to finish. And then I would like to explain to you how to maximize your chance to get the best J1 waiver program. And I explain to you the whole process and my experience on applying the J1 waiver. I'm just going to show you the timeline on when I start this, when I start looking for jobs, when I start applying for the waiver, what are the things that are important. And so you can just see the whole process. Right, so let's get started. So the first topic is we're going to look at the update of the exchange visitor skill list. Now, what is skill list? Now, I'm just going to read here. The skill list is a list of countries designated by the Secretary of State as clearly requiring the services of persons engaged in certain fields of specialized knowledge or skills. This list is used by the Department of State and Department of Homeland Security to determine whether an individual who has been admitted into the United States as non-immigrant exchange visitor or who acquired such status is subject to the 2-year foreign residence requirement under Sections 212E of the Immigration and Nationality Act as amended. So that's the skill list. Skill list is basically the countries that are subjected to the 2-year home requirement. It's actually that simple. Now, they update this in December 9, 2024, so they get rid some of the countries. That means some of the countries, actually including my country, Indonesia, is not subjected to the 2 home year requirement anymore. That actually means that you don't need to do a waiver. That sounds nice, right? But if you go to the main official website, you're gonna find this. There is an exception to that. Now, as you can see here, how to use the list. Step 1, see if your country on the skill list. If yes, you go to step 2. If no, then does not have a skill list, you do not have fulfilled the 2-year home country physical presence. However, You may still need to fulfill the 2-year requirement if your program was government funded or if you receive graduate medical education or training, which is what residency is. Residency is graduate medical education. So if you are in residency, if you're entering residency and you got J1, that actually means you still have to do your waiver. Nothing's changed, unfortunately. It actually makes sense because the US wants doctors that come into a medically underserved area to serve, and to get rid of that doesn't make any sense. However, this would be a good news if you are doing research. If you're J1 in research and you are not in part of the skill list, then you're not subject to the 2-year home requirement, which is great. The idea of the 2-year home requirement meaning that you cannot change your visa status to an H-1B or a green card or a certain type of visa without going back home for 2 years. If you are not subject to this, then you can transition to like H-1B, for example. Then everything would be more seamless and much easier for you. But if you're a resident, then you still need to do your waiver. So that's the first topic. Now the second topic, what is the best J1 waiver program? There are multiple J1 programs out there. There is one that's actually the best that I highly recommend you to aim for that. But before we get into that, if you are going for residency, the easiest way is just don't go for a J1. So you don't have to do a waiver. Just go for an H-1B, do your step 3 and aim for programs that offer H-1B. And then you might be thinking, well, but I want to do a fellowship. What if I want to do a fellowship? Then you can just convert from H-1B to J1 if you really want to do that. J1 cannot turn into H-1B because you are subjected to the 2-year home requirement. But H-1B, you're welcome to go to J1 if that's really what you want. A lot of people are kind of reluctant to do that though. They would prefer to work for another 1 or 2 years and then after that apply for a green card. That really depends on each country. How long does it need it for you to get the green card? So now let's talk about multiple J1 waiver programs. Okay, we have a Conrad 30, which is a federal state program. We have the ARC, stands for Appalachian Regional Commission. We have the Delta Regional Authority. In short, it's called the DRA. And then we have the HHS, which is the Human Health Services. Out of those programs, that probably there are other programs, and we're not going to go to the detail for each and every different program. I'm just going to tell you right away what's the best one. And the best one is Conrad 30. You have to aim for a Conrad 30 for your J1 waiver program. So why Conrad 30 is the best? I'm going to explain to you. There's three reasons why Conrad 30 is the best and you should aim for it. Ready? Reason number 1, Conrad 30 available for all the states. The Appalachian region is only an Appalachian region. So that region is around Pennsylvania. I'm just probably going to put you on a map and then you're going to see what are the areas for Appalachian Regional Commission. And then the Delta Regional Authority is Louisiana and Alabama. And the HHS, pretty much anywhere, but you have to work in really rural area. Conrad 30 available for all the states. So that's why it's the best, one of the reasons. The second reason is Conrad 30 has a flex slot. Now you might be wondering, what is a flex slot? So basically, when you want to do a J1 waiver, they want you to work in the rural areas where there is basically nobody, maybe just a sheep or moose or horse or deer. You have to work in the rural area, and then the site of the clinic or the hospital should be located in the rural area. However, with the flex slot, you can actually work in a site, a clinic, or a hospital that is not located in the rural area, but mostly serve people that reside in the underserved area. And that's what the flex slot is. And that's how I can get this really good job, even though I'm a J1 waiver myself. I work at Wentworth Health Partners, part of the Mass General Brigham, which is located really close to downtown in Dover, New Hampshire. And that is nowhere rural area. That is not a rural area. But around us, surrounding us in the area of Rochester, and then there is multiple rural areas in New Hampshire toward the north. There are a lot of patients that's coming from those areas. So even though the location of the clinic is not in a rural area or remote area, but it serves people that resides in the underserved area. And that is what flex slot is, which is great. That's one main difference with the HHS. The Human Health Services, you have to work in really, rural area, kind of like a middle of nowhere. While using the Conrad 30, you can you can use the flex slot. So that's the second reason why Conrad 30 is the best. Now I'm coming to the most important. The third reason why Conrad 30 is the best is because it does not have the liquidated damage. Now, before we jump into the explanation for the liquidation damage, I would like to give you gifts for hanging out with me today. If you're going for USMLE, I have USMLE test taking strategies. It's a free online course that will help you increase your score by improving your test taking skills. It's free. And if you're looking for US clinical rotations, I have a USCE Essentials Guide, which describes you what is USCE, what are the types of USCE, when to begin searching for USCE, and I also have listed 30 plus hospitals that offer US clinical rotations for non-US IMG. Again, both are totally free. You can just get that using the link down description below. And then you might be wondering, what is liquidated damage? I'm going to show you. Let's take a look at the ARC J1 visa waiver affidavit and agreement. I want you to just jump and take a look at clause number 4. I agree to incorporate all the terms of this J1 waiver affidavit and agreement into any and all employment agreements I enter pursuant to paragraph 3, and to include in each such agreement the ARC liquidated damages clause of $250,000 payable to the employer, a copy of all employment, and whatever. Basically, if you quit or terminated or whatever reason, you stop working, you might be subjected to pay $250,000 to the employer. That's the ARC. Conrad 30 does not have liquidated damage. Why don't we take a look at the Delta Regional Authority? So here is the Delta Regional Authority J1 Visa Waiver Program, Affidavit, and Agreement. I want you to take a look at clause number 5. I agree to incorporate all the terms of this J1 Waiver, Affidavit, and Agreement into any and all employment agreements I enter pursuant to paragraph 3. Very similar, right? With the ARC. And to include in each such agreements the DRS liquidated damages clause payable to the employer. And pretty much the rest is the same. This is what happened to me when I was looking for a job. Okay, I interviewed multiple places. I interview in Pennsylvania, and I interview also in one hospital down in Louisiana. I'm not gonna mention the name. I went down there, did all the interview. It was actually a nice place. I mean, I applied kind of late, looking for a job a little bit late. So I was thinking like, whatever, I just need a job, okay? It's not that difficult to actually, I just kind of like picky. I actually want to go to East Coast area. I'm kind of picky. I don't want to go to like super like underserved area and rural area. Then I got this interview down there in Louisiana. The place is nice. Actually, I kind of like it. It's pretty good. It's pretty quiet. Hospital is big. I get to work hybrid in the clinic and the hospital, which is at that time kind of like what I like. I mean, even now I work mostly in outpatient, but I still work in the inpatient as well. And I'm gonna show you, as soon as they send the acceptance letters, I receive a promissory note, and I want you to take a look at this note. Take a look at this. For failure received, Julius Haryadi, the maker, person of full age and majority, resident of Illinois. At that time, I did my residency at Illinois St. Francis Hospital. Promises to pay to the order of, I blank that because I don't want to mention the name of the hospital, the principal sum of $280,000 or the aggregate unpaid principal amount of all loans made by blank to the maker prior to maturity pursuant to the hospital physician agreement. Hereinafter referred to whichever is less principal payable in 20 equal installments commencing on the first day of August 1st, 2021, and thereafter on the first day of each succeeding month, except to the extent such installments are forgiven as set forth in section 2.7. This note is issued pursuant to the hospital physician agreement dated the day thereof by and between, and blah, 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 blah. And I wanted to take a look at the bottom here where they mention about the interest. This note shall bear interest at 8% per annum. 8% interest. So you can read the rest if you want. In short, right after I signed up for the job, I got a loan, $280,000 loan, an 8% interest rate. At that time, I was like, what is this? I don't understand what is actually going on. But basically, this is related to the liquidated damage. So if I stop working in any way, it's binding. Basically, they try to bind you with money so that you wouldn't complete it and won't leave. I'm just so scared. I don't want to see it anymore. I said that I'm sorry. I was interested, but I think it will not be a good fit for me. I just leave. It's just so scary. But that is what liquidated damage is. In Conrad 30, we don't have liquidated damage. And when I apply for this job, I don't have any liquidated damage. And thank God, I don't suddenly have a $280,000 loan. So that's why it's very important for you to choose the right J1 waiver program, which is the Conrad 30. Now I'm going to explain to you how so you can apply for Conrad 30, because there is actually a problem. As the name implies, Conrad 30 means 30 slots. There are only 30 slots in each state. So if the slots is gone, you can't go for Conrad 30 and you're forced to choose something else, which is scary. So you want to aim for Conrad 30. To maximize your chances to get Conrad 30, you want to immediately apply for J1 as soon as the submission date is open. Though every states are different, most states' open date is October 1st for each year. On that date, you want to be ready and send your J1 waiver package to the state. Though there are many documents inside the J1 waiver package like DS3035, your lawyer will assist you with this, and it's not time-limiting steps. The important thing you need to complete are the documents that are time-limiting steps, meaning it takes time to complete those documents, so you have to complete it early and be prepared. There are 3 documents that are time-limiting. Number 1, you need to complete FCPS application. This is important because most states require FCPS to apply for the state medical license, and that is why the second document is the state medical license. Approving the medical license takes time, and you can only get this if you have the contract letter, and that is why document number 3 is getting the contract letter. In order for you to get the contract letter, you need to hunt for a job, and this also takes time. The J1, again, for Conrad 30 usually open October 1st each year, assuming that it will take you about a month for the medical license to be approved. That means you need to have your medical license by September. Assuming you take about 2-3 months to look for a job, interview, etc., then that means you're gonna have to start looking for a job around June. And then FCPS, you can prepare it even before that. That is the timeline that I recommend. So you actually need to prepare it at close to the end of your second year if you are on a 3-year program like internal medicine like me. And then you start looking from then. If you want to maximize, this is a way for you to maximize the chance so you can get the Conrad 30, because it's first come, first serve, and only 30 slots. And by the way, the flex slots is usually not 30. There could be 5, there could be 10. For example, in New Hampshire, I believe there's a 10 flex slots available. So you want to aim for that flex slots, right? So you can actually live not so in a rural area. So those are basically pretty much the steps that you need to do in order for you to get the Conrad 30. Now let's take a look my personal experience on applying for the J1 process. I'll just be honest with you that I applied pretty late because I don't know any of these things. I don't know that the Conrad, I've thought that, yeah, J1 waiver, yeah, cool, all right. For sure I'm gonna get a waiver. Yeah, just work with the lawyer, wherever. Wrong, there is a date for everything. So you have to be prepared. Okay, and there is also limited spots in the Conrad 30, so you have to be prepared. So that's why it's very important for you to know all of these things. Let's take a look on my process. So again, I started a little bit late. I actually started looking for jobs in September 2019. So I go to PracticeLink, I go to 3RNet. There are multiple websites that we use to look for jobs, but I think the main one is actually PracticeLink at that time. I got multiple interviews. Like I mentioned, I went to Louisiana. I actually also went to some area in Pennsylvania. Finally, I got a phone interview from the place where I'm working right now in Dover. And I got the phone interview October 30th. And then it went well. I was offered to a site interview. I said, I'll fly the next day if I have to, because I'm really late. At that time I realized that, oh my goodness, I should have been ready October 1st and applying for all the J1 package, etc. And I'm so late, so I just told my employer that I'll just fly the next day if you allow me to. I really want a job. On November 7th, I did my on-site interview, and then I waited out their response, and then finally I received acceptance letter November 20th. So I got the job, and I made some little negotiation, and they agree with it. They're happy with me, and then I'm happy with them. And then, so yeah, I'll sign it, send everything. I want a job. Let's get it done. The lawyer contacted me very, very quickly. I think it's like the next day. And then the lawyer sent me a bunch of stuff. I probably can show you over here everything that needs to be prepared. Like I already mentioned, you need the FCFS as soon as possible. Apply for a New Hampshire medical license. Once that's accepted, then they can send the J1 waiver package. And there's multiple documents, like a bunch of documents that I have to fill in order for applying the J1, the DS3035 and all those stuff, you know it. So I need to fill that, but that it's not the time limiting steps. Time limiting steps is the FCFS, the New Hampshire medical license, or whatever medical license you're going to apply to. In my case, New Hampshire medical license. Those are basically the time limiting steps. It takes time for me to be approved. I was quick enough on the FCFS. December 2nd, I completed that FCFS, and then I sent everything to apply for the New Hampshire medical license. Finally, my license approved in January 8th, and then the J1 waiver package was sent January 28th. So it's supposed to be October 1st, and then I was kind of late. But I don't know how I was lucky enough. There's still slots available, miraculously. And then in February 24, 2020, I just want to mention this. There is the new rules about the public benefits disclosure. I actually mentioned that in my previous video about the H-1B visa during the Trump administration. There is no H-1B premium processing. That's one thing. And then the second thing is that about the public benefits disclosure. Basically, you want to disclose if you have used any public benefits like Medicaid or SNAP or housing, things like that. Because that would be a violation of the immigration law if you actually receive any public benefits, and you have to disclose that. So I signed that. It's all good. And then finally, the Division of Public Health sends the recommendation with the J1 package to the U.S. Department of State February 2020. That is basically outside my hands. There's nothing else that I can do. I'm just waiting. And then I received the J1 waiver approval notice May 11, 2020. Around the same time the H1B was filed, and then it's sent to the USCIS. And finally, my H1B approved June 12th. And then I start working, I believe it's July 23rd, if not August, at Wentworth Health Partners Internal Medicine, where I'm working right now, part of the Mass General Brigham. So those are the whole J1 waiver process. We've gone through a lot of topics today about the updates of the J1 and what's the best J1 waiver program, right? Conrad 30, why it's the best, how you can maximize your chance to get the Conrad 30. And I shared my experience going through the whole process. I hope you found this useful. Again, my recommendation is if you want to avoid all this, just apply for H-1B. But given the Trump administration, I did mention in the previous video, things could be changed. There might not be H-1B premium processing. I don't know, can't read to the future. But I matched the same year as Trump became president, and that's what happened to me. So if you're applying this year, you probably want to be prepared. And I hope all this information is helpful for you. That's it for today's video. I will see you in the next one real soon.